What if the country you live in, the borders you recognize, and even the conflicts you hear about today, were never meant to exist the way they do? Before we dive into the main story, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell notification button for more interesting video like this. Imagine this. A group of powerful men sit in a quiet room in 1916. No cameras. No public. No consequences. On the table? A blank map of the Middle East. One of them takes a ruler, draws a straight line across the desert, and in that moment, millions of lives are permanently altered. No regard for tribes. No understanding of religion. No concern for history. Just lines. These men were Mark Sykes and François-Georges Picot. And what they created, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, didn't just divide land. It divided people. It ignited conflicts. And it shaped a future we're still living in today. But here's the truth most people don't know. This wasn't just one agreement. It was part of a much bigger, hidden game. A game where the world itself was quietly partitioned, behind closed doors. To understand how the world was divided, we have to go back to the early 20th century, when one of the most powerful empires in history, the Ottoman Empire, was collapsing. For over 600 years, it controlled vast lands across the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe. But by the time World War I began, the empire was weakening, and powerful nations like the United Kingdom and France saw an opportunity. They weren't just fighting a war. They were planning the future. A future where they would control what came next. In 1916, Britain and France made a decision that would change history forever. They created the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a classified agreement to divide the Ottoman lands between them. No consultation with the people living there. No international oversight. Just strategy. Britain would control areas that are now part of Iraq and Jordan. France would dominate regions that became Syria and Lebanon. And Jerusalem? It would be placed under international control. But here's what makes this even more shocking. At the exact same time, Britain was secretly making promises to Arab leaders. Through the McMahon-Hussein correspondence, Britain encouraged Arab revolts against the Ottomans. In exchange, they hinted at independence. Arab leaders believed they were fighting for their own future. But behind the scenes, that future had already been sold. When the Sykes-Picot Agreement became public in 1917, exposed after the Russian Revolution, it caused outrage. Trust was shattered. But by then, the lines had already been drawn. The borders created weren't natural. They didn't follow language, culture, or religion. They followed power. Entire ethnic groups were split apart. Others were forced together despite deep tensions. For example, Sunni and Shia populations placed within the same state. Kurdish people divided across multiple countries. Tribal lands cut into separate nations. These artificial borders created fragile states. And fragile states often lead to conflict. Fast forward to today. Many conflicts in the Middle East can be traced back to these decisions. Instability in Iraq, civil war in Syria, tensions across the region, all connected in part to borders drawn over a century ago. It's not the only cause, but it's one of the most important. Because when borders ignore reality, reality eventually pushes back. And here's what most people miss. This wasn't unique. Across Africa, Asia, and beyond, colonial powers drew borders that ignored local realities. The partitioning of the world wasn't random. It was systematic, strategic, calculated. So now, think about this. If so many of today's borders were drawn in secret, if entire nations were shaped by hidden agreements, then what else about the world we live in was decided without us knowing? And more importantly, are we still living inside a map that was never meant to serve the people on it? For more videos like this, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.